Commissioners, item 11 on the agenda is an application for a certificate of appropriateness, the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 193341. This is 11 Commerce Street, located within the Greenwich Village Historic District. It's a late federal Greek revival style row house built in 1826. The application is to construct a rooftop addition and railing and modify the rear facade.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Timothy Shaw, Preservation staff. 11 Commerce Street is located on the north side of Commerce Street, just west of 7th Avenue South, within the Greenwich Village Historic District. The application is for the installation of a new multi-story window opening with multi-light windows at the rear facade, for the construction of a new copper-clad bulkhead at the roof, the installation of a railing at the roof perimeter, and the extension of the existing chimney. Please note that while there is a mock-up for the bulkhead, seen here clad in a blue tarp, no mock-up was installed for the railing or the raised chimney, both of which will be visible from the street and are outlined. The chimney is outlined here and here. Please also note that the window replacement and other facade work at the front facade is all being addressed at staff level per the rules. Blake Goebel, the architect, will present the proposal in further detail.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Blake Goebel from B-Space Architecture. As Tim mentioned, the building is a circa 1830 Greek Revival building at the corner of Commerce Street and 7th Avenue. The site plan up there, if you can see, the building is basically a 3-story square main building with a 2-story extension that goes back to the lot line. The pink zone there is where we're addressing the rear window, what would be visible from where that window is literally visible from, not at all from any public thoroughfare, just from a few houses on the opposite side of the block. And as Tim mentioned, the blue, you can see the mock-up there. From directly across the street, very little of none of the proposed bulkhead and penthouse would be visible. Our building happens to be at a very exposed corner, so from various points across 7th Avenue, it's much more visible from a distance. I can go through. So here, basically just plans mostly showing the rear window, which you can see there in this wall. These are proposed and existing and proposed conditions. Again, going up through. So here at the 3rd floor, this rear addition is a rooftop. The penthouse is a combination stair bulkhead and mechanical room. The clients would like to, because they have very small children, very limited space downstairs, would like to introduce radiant floors. So the mechanical room is to house a boiler, hot water heater, and various manifolds for the radiant floor system, which would take up a lot of space downstairs. Super hard to get photos of the rear because there's no space back there, but if you can make out, the top row is sort of looking at back at our building, and then the bottom row kind of what's across the way. Some material samples. We're proposing a verdigris copper cladding for the bulkhead and penthouse, a oxidized kind of middle bronze color. That's not a profile of the rear window, but just a finish sample for that. And the white is a previously approved color for windows and various trim elements on the facade. Some precedents, 27 Christopher Street, you know, we're looking at this window here. Some other precedents just showing, you know, similar scope, maybe even more profound than ours. So here's an existing and proposed. Again, I think it's slightly misleading because it's a projection, the elevation, but you know, it's a lot lower in real life. Here from the rear, what I'd like to point out, our rear facade is set back quite a ways from the 2 neighbors, so there is not a continuous facade language of windows that we're, you know, kind of messy. You can see what's there now, and we're looking to do this window. Here, existing cross-section, that's our rear addition to the right, to the left, and the proposed condition. Yes. The bulkhead, at the highest point, if we're measuring from, say, its own point on the roof, is about maybe 9 feet to the exterior.
And where it steps down when it's at the front?
At the front, it's 5 to 6 feet. That is, really simply to get headroom for the stair. We can't, because we have a shorter, you can see the neighbor's extension there. There is a bulkhead on the neighbor's building that goes straight out the back. We're not really able to do that so well. We have to kind of turn the corner to go out and get a few more steps to make it up to the roof. There you see an outline of the proposed chimney. That's a working chimney, so we need the 2-foot height extension above the nearest rooftop element.
Are there other questions? Any other questions? Okay, we'll take testimony. Christopher Elgoff.
Christabel Goff for the Society for the Architecture of the City. Commerce Street is a very narrow old street, and when 7th Avenue was cut through, Greenwich Village hit Commerce Street at an angle. Thus, 11, a very early federal house, stands just in from the avenue. I find it very hard to understand how anything on the roof of this building would not be hugely visible from 7th Avenue. I'm hearing that the mock-up that we are supposed to use to judge isn't accurate because it only represents a railing, although it certainly doesn't have a shape that suggests that. I actually went down and took some photos. What is up there is just huge. And you see it from Morton Street, you see it from Bleecker Street, you see it from both sides of the avenue. I think there's a lack of clarity here about what you're going to see. I'm just going to circulate a couple of snapshots that I took of the if this mock-up isn't accurate, why are we working from it?
Tim, can you just clarify the mock-up? The mock-up is the bulkhead, but not the railings, is that right?
The mock-up is of the bulkhead, and we have every reason to believe it is an accurate representation. The front railing and the chimney are not mocked up. So those, which the chimney would be taller, but it's much narrower, obviously. Railing would be at the front as sort of a normal railing height, but that mock-up is of the proposed bulkhead, not.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Kelly Carroll.
Thank you. Yeah, you can see it there.
Kelly Carroll, Historic Districts Council.
It's perfectly clear.
HDC found the proposed copper material harmonious as long as it is invisible. Because this is a row of nearly 200-year-old houses, we asked the Commission to preserve the top story of the building in the rear, essentially eliminating the new glass openings at that level. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on this item? Community Board 2 recommends approval of the bulkhead, rails, rear windows, and front door, and requests that the applicant seek alternative solutions to the placement of the chimney with the goal of minimizing its conspicuousness. All right, do we have other questions for, do you want to respond?
Well, yeah, I would say the mock-up of the bulkhead is accurate. This is exactly, and this photograph here, if you look where it's taken, this is way down, it's from quite a distance away. We don't have the fence mocked up. I think you can see the relationship here. The fence would just peek up, and again, that's taken from directly across the street. And obviously the chimney, which we've drawn in here and there. This is the top left photograph is from directly across, it's the corner of 7th Avenue.
Yes,
These-
Adi.
But just to be clear, though, the image on the bottom right, all of the, if you can just point, that's, the bulkhead is, the entire addition is where the blue is, right? So
Yes.
it's seen in its pretty much entirety from 7th Avenue, right?
From across from here.
That's 7th Avenue. Am I
That's
right?
correct, yes.
Okay, so, but it's seen.
Yes.
You can see it,
You can
yes,
see it.
that's clear.
You can,
All of it.
we're
I mean,
not
and it's-
denying that you can't see it.
Right,
but
yeah. And then
We've-
the other image shows it behind
This one
the
here,
building that's in the front, is that right?
Right.
that's right, that's taken from here. So
Right, so
this
the
is,
corner building has the bulkhead, which is the slope thing that you
that's
can see,
right.
and this falls
is the
behind
next
it.
door neighbor. You know, at the Community Board 2 hearing, we did have some negative feedback on the height of the bulkhead. We have already started to work to modify it, to get it lower. I've got a couple of ideas that I need to kind of test with DOB issues, zoning issues, fire-rated materials issues, et cetera, but, and to work out the stair, but the owners who are here in the audience today, we're all sensitive to that, and we're committed to making this as low as it possibly
But your
can
building
be.
does or does not have a bulkhead currently?
It does not.
Doesn't.
no.
So the thing we see behind this bulkhead, in the left image,
Well,
it looks like there's another stair behind.
the
Okay, but it's
blue
not.
is us.
And what's that?
This is the neighbor.
Right, and behind.
That's another building,
You're looking down the
I
block.
know, I'm just thinking.
just
that there's
behind the
one behind
backdrop
it.
of that. Just behind,
That
that.
little bit on the right.
I'm not understanding.
Yeah,
what
okay,
you're-
never mind. There's no bulkhead. There's no stair.
No, there
Okay.
is not. No. You know, our proposal has discrete scopes of work, one of which is the large rear window. I'm not sure that I understood the comment about that. I couldn't really hear what the comment was, but we're committed to reducing the height of the bulkhead and the chimney, because one follows the other. What we would appreciate, because this is a kind of longer lead time, is perhaps partial approval for the rear window. That's going to, just for the sake of the neighborhood and the neighbors and getting this construction project moving along, that's a lot longer process for us. So if it's possible to approve the rear window, even as we leave the bulkhead on the table for modifications.
Right, but still, okay, so, yes, Michael, and then
Question for you.
Dan.
The bulkhead right now allows for what I would assume is relatively modest head clearance within the bulkhead as you come into the door, stand on the landing, and then start to go downstairs. Now, the highest part of the stair is on the part that's outside on the party wall of the building. Couldn't you kind of drop the rest of the bulkhead over the return portion?
Yes.
Right.
And kind of, you'd be able to cut that thing in half?
That's entirely possible. There's another solution,
Uh-huh.
which is essentially, if we can, this is the one I don't want to, but essentially to stop everything at a line right here and put the door straight out onto the roof, so that
Even
we
better.
can essentially mimic what the neighbor is doing.
Right.
Just have a
Straight
a
shot.
one slope, that really can reduce that bulkhead down upwards of 3 feet. There's a lot of issues that I need to work out, including are we able to get up to the roof with the stair? Because the stair is so
So
limited.
in that scenario, would you still need your mechanical space? Because
Yes.
that also creates the width that you see. It's
It-
not just
It does.
the bulkhead, it's that as well. So,
It does. The mechanical piece is going to be a lot harder to.
what are your options? Is there anywhere else you could relocate it?
With the system we have, there aren't a lot of options. We are so limited in space downstairs for this.
These
We-
manifolds couldn't just be put on the side of that reduced bulkhead in a cabinet? Is there room?
That's exactly where they are going. Yeah, there's literally enough room for the equipment and a person to walk in and service the equipment. And we're, as you see, we're allowing for the 6-foot clearance. We can look at that and really maximize that reduction. I think the height overall, because that will also lower the chimney, which I think is also a mitigating factor to
Right.
this.
Michael, what were you suggesting was
Well, this
last
idea is
time?
better,
Oh, okay.
so,
Yeah, but like at the last,
hatch.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we've seen situations where the city has allowed a hatch for roof access, instead of having a full bulkhead. It's been on single-family townhouses that we've seen here in the
Again,
last
for the
6 months.
equipment that we're wanting to put up here and the service that it's going to require,
Well, look, I think if you were to
Our preferred.
take your bulkhead off the table, so to speak, and have a
Mhm.
hatch, push them, then the mechanical room can go in a different place. Maybe go where it is.
There,
Fires.
you mean elsewhere in the building?
Well, elsewhere on the
It's-
roof, put it in the place that's least visible on the roof, perhaps, maybe the top left corner of the roof, my orientation's not very good.
Yeah.
Or associated with the chimney or something.
I think we get into a little bit of trouble with the 6-foot clearance, but yes, I think there's some possible solutions to this that
Okay.
might be available to us.
Dana, you had a question?
I just wanted him originally to talk about ways in which he might reduce it, and which is what people have been doing, so.
Okay.
We started this a few weeks ago after the Community Board 2 hearing and the feedback there.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we can close the hearing.
I'll move.
Yes, you have a question?
No, we're going to talk about the windows? Should we?
Do you have a question? We can talk about it when.
Question,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
No
Okay, so we
question,
can,
sorry.
we can close the hearing.
so moved.
And I just want to say one thing. I walk by this 7th Avenue all the time. And it is an interesting situation because while it's on the side street of Commerce, it's because of the geometry, it looks like it's kind of just fronting on 7th Avenue. And the views are very direct, unfortunately, from the south looking north. And I think when you go to the north of the site and look south, I think the bulkhead, even as proposed, sits in with other kinds of buildings and backdrops behind it. But I think that when you look at it from the south looking north, you do get this head-on view, which becomes very problematic. So I think we've had some discussion about that. So, you should work with our staff to really minimize it and think of other alternative systems to reduce the bulkhead and subsequently the chimney as well. On the window, I think it's actually quite attractive, but I'm interested in hearing other comments about the rear, the window at the rear. Do you wanted to speak on it, that?
No, I thought we were moving on from it, so I wanted for it to be
Right.
addressed. And it's not visible from anywhere on the street, but it is from the interior. I mean,
It's pretty,
sorry, were you going to show
Yeah,
another image?
well, yeah. Complete, I mean, it's dramatic in the way in which it departs from what's there. It's a new life for this little building. But this building, unlike some of the others, is
Yeah.
retaining all its bones. I mean, this one doesn't have enlargements except for the bulkhead. They're not bumping anything out. So in terms of sort of weighing the historic fabric kept,
Right,
because a
right.
lot of the masonry remains. It's just really the windows on one wall.
Yeah.
much view of it,
Okay,
because it's so.
I understand. I'm fine.
Okay, so I think we're good with that? I can't remember who read it last time.
It's my turn.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. And so just to clarify, they're going to work with staff on reducing the bulkhead, right?
Yes, and look at alternative methods of access.
Okay. In the matter of docket number 193341, 11 Commerce Street in Greenwich Village Historic District, a late Federal Greek Revival-style row house built in 1826, the application is to construct a rooftop addition and railing and modify the rear facade. I recommend approval with a few modifications, finding that the house and its neighbors were historically enlarged with a new top floor. Therefore, the alterations to the top floor of the rear facade will not result in the loss of any significant architectural features of the building. That the adjacent houses extend further into the rear yard than the subject house. Therefore, the proposed fenestration will not be seen in context with the adjacent rear facades and will not detract from the historic character of the rear facades. That the proposed multi-story window opening with multi-light metal windows and spandrels is in keeping with modern alterations at non-visible rear facades found elsewhere within the historic district, and the work will not result in the loss of significant amount of historic fabric. And that given the location of the house near the intersection of 7th Avenue South Any rooftop bulkhead will have more visibility than usual, and the presence of somewhat visible copper-clad bulkhead and railing will not detract from the building or the roofscape. However, the proposed bulkhead is larger than necessary, as it contains stairs and a mechanical room, and is excessively visible from 7th Avenue South, and the presence of the rooftop mechanical room would require the chimney to be raised, further exacerbating visibility of the rooftop installations. Therefore, I recommend that the size of the bulkhead be reduced and the applicant explore the use of a low-profile bulkhead or hatch, and that the chimney not be raised.
All in favor? Any opposed? This application's approved.
Okay, Commissioner